A COVID Christmas Carol by Evan King, 8th grade, Newton D. Baker School of Arts. It was the day before Christmas in the year 2020. Scrooge was busy fretting about the costs of cleaning and sanitizing products. He was seeing how many places he could cut back. He had laid off most of his other workers already. He had lost his business partner, Jacob Marley, earlier in the year to the ongoing coronavirus. Scrooge refused to purchase a computer or programs for his only remaining employee, Mr. Bob Cratchit. He didn't want to spend money on things that he felt were unnecessary. In his opinion, Bob had a perfectly good working computer at his desk in the office, and he could work there just fine. At the close of business that day, Scrooge locked up shop and headed home. When he arrived home, he kept getting the feeling he was being watched. Then he heard what he thought to be the voice of his former partner, Jacob. It was. Jacob came to warn Scrooge that disaster lay ahead if he didn't change his ways. He warned him that things could get even worse than they already were. Scrooge wanted to hear none of it. Before Jacob left, he told Scrooge that he would be visited by 3 spirits, and with that, he left. Scrooge thought he was imagining things. As he watched the evening news, he heard of the spikes in the coronavirus cases all over the country. Even though Scrooge knew that Jacob had passed from the coronavirus, he felt that it wasn't going to touch him any more than it already had. Shaking his head, he shut off the television and headed for bed. As he began to drift to sleep, a bright light filled the room. The ghost of Christmas past stood at the bottom of his bed. He took the covers away from Scrooge and pulled him out of bed. He showed Scrooge the joy he had when he was a young man, the fun of family and friends getting together to share meals in each other's company, hugs and laughter, games and gifts, and smiles all around. None of this was in Scrooge's life now. In a blink of his eyes, Scrooge was back in his bed. Just when he began to think it had all been a dream and was dozing off to sleep, a rush of air blew into the room. It was the ghost of Christmas Present. She came to show him how things really were. She showed him the Cratchit household. Scrooge could not understand how the family could be happy with the tiny bit of food that they had and were calling it a feast. He heard Mrs. Cratchit saying that she was so happy that they were able to make such a feast and so thankful for the food bank. The ghost explained to Mr. Scrooge that Mr. Cratchit did not make enough money to fully support his family, so they had to seek out additional means. After the dinner, the older children took out their school-issued computers and hotspots so that they could talk with their grandparents on Zoom since they couldn't be in person due to the pandemic. Scrooge didn't truly understand the need for this connection. He was about to start asking questions, but when he turned around, he saw that he was back in his bedroom. For the 3rd time, he tried to go to bed. Sleep did not come. But the 3rd ghost did. This was the ghost of Christmas Future. This ghost was the most intimidating. It had no face, just a shadowy, hooded figure. Scrooge asked it to leave. The ghost simply pointed in the direction of the wall. As Scrooge slowly got up to see what the ghost was pointing at, he saw a mourning Mrs. Cratchit. She and her older children were crying over the loss of their youngest son and sibling, Tim. The oldest child was asking Mrs. Cratchit if their dad was going to make it. She told them that she didn't know. She explained she can only check in with the hospital when school is over, so she can use the computer to see their dad, as he had contracted coronavirus. She blamed Scrooge under her breath for making Bob go to work and catching the virus. This is what took the life of Tim, as he was vulnerable to begin with. At the sight of this scene, Scrooge pleaded for the spirit to stop and take him home. The spirit had one more stop for Scrooge. This was his own gravesite. As Scrooge begged and pleaded, he fell to his knees crying for forgiveness and mercy. When he looked up, he found that he was back in his bed. It was Christmas Day. Though the coronavirus still around, he was still resolved to change his ways. In his effort to change his ways, Scrooge bought a computer and internet access for Bob Cratchit to work from home with. He gave Bob a raise and had the Cratchit children show him how to conduct Zoom conferences online. He purchased cleaning and sanitizing supplies for the business and the Cratchit household. He gave a generous donation to the food bank and volunteered his time, too. He had truly learned his lesson and changed as a person.